Because Bear loves that voice, had to do it. I know, woof. So this week we discussed Billy Madison with a great friend of the show, Oren Peleg. I lived with Oren for 7 years here in Los Angeles. One of our favorite things to do was quote Adam Sandler to each other. I can't tell you how many times we would leave voicemails to each other with those quotes and somehow bring them up in, weirdly applicable conversations. I don't know how it worked, but it did. And we wanted to bring him on because he has a pretty nuanced opinion about why this movie holds up today and why he thinks kids today would like it, as well as the fact that it's just a movie that meant a lot to him and that he's a big Adam Sandler fan. So we discussed that at the jump, and we hope you enjoy it.
I just wrote down, fuck, Triscuits are the worst cracker, because that's how I feel.
They are bad.
Yes. Oh, God, yes. Welcome back to Is It Still Good? For those of you who don't know, this is the show with a couple of grown-up film students who hate growing up, and we take off our rose-colored glasses. We look back at the culture of our youth. We take our glasses, we boil them in a pot with a malt, and we add some hops. We add some water. We let it ferment for days. And what comes out is what we imbibe ourselves with. And it's with that set of eyes that we look back upon things and we decide if they're good or not still. So I'm Bear Kennedy in Chicago. I'm back in the second city with my dick in my hand. And joining me as always.
That is very crass, Michael. And I do not approve of your penis in your hands. Andrew Carter is with him as always in Los Angeles. We have a very special guest today. One of my best friends, very best friends, very good boy, guy I lived with for 7 years, Mr. Oren Peleg. He is here to discuss Billy Madison. And for those that don't know, Billy Madison is Adam Sandler's 1995 seminal classic, 25 years old this year. It's weird to think that we are older than this movie, but we are. I mean, we were like 7 or whatever when it came out.
Well, we've never not been older than this movie.
I know, but it just sounds weirder to say it as, an adult. But you're right.
Anything that came out after we were born, we are not technically older than.
I know. Like, I think, Bear, you might even be older than Die Hard.
I think that was June of '88, and I was born in May, so got it by just a hair.
Wow, that's fucking wild. Yeah, I was August '88, so I don't. I'm still younger than Die Hard.
I don't remember the date. I just know it was a summer movie, and I know that's weird because it takes place at Christmas.
I know,
but they didn't go for the meta Christmas movie at Christmas time release.
Yeah, I know. It's a great movie though. Yeah, but do. All right, so Oren, we brought Oren on to talk about Billy Madison because he and I are both massive, not only fans of the movie, but fans of Mr. Adam Sandler. Even 1 year in Halloween 2013, we went as Billy Madison and the Penguin from Billy Madison.
And you were the Penguin?
I was the Penguin.
Yeah, you was Adam Sandler, of course.
You look more like him. Is why I asked.
Andrew looks more like him?
No, you look more like him. Andrew has a natural penguin-like nature. Yeah, so I think that you did it right.
And Oren's costume, though, he had a little lunchbox with snack packs in there.
Snack packs inside, yeah, that's right.
What wardrobe did you do? Did you do the cut-off sweater?
I think I did. I want to say like baggy. Like, to be honest with you, the way I dress and the way Sandler dresses are not too dissimilar. So it wasn't a big stretch for me.
So like shorts with Timbs.
Right, like insert, obscure East Coast college T-shirt, like a really shitty, dilapidated hat. Except I think he wears a lot of like boots and Timbs and things like that.
I think I lent you a pair of my Timbs. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
and they were too, and you have
sizes too small.
Yeah, you have bigger feet than me, so you had to do it without without laces.
Right, and yeah, I think just like I wore like I want to say like cargo shorts and like a big draping flannel and like a backwards hat or something. Like that.
I'm pretty sure someone took a picture of us that
It was a
night.
pretty big hit. I was surprised people got it.
It was a hit.
Oh, that was my question. So people did get it from just that.
You'd be surprised. People got it. Yeah.
Well, I think
Yeah.
with the two of you, yeah. I mean, it would be a little weird if it was just you, Oren, doing Sandler, but people might even pick up on that. But I think you give them the penguin and it clicks.
Penguin, the snack pack.
A snack pack, yeah.
And I also was doing the like yabba dabba doo, you know, the Sandler voice for people, and you know, we kind of
Yabba dabba do. That sounds like Fred Flintstone.
you know, like the yeah, yabba dabba doo is just a fun thing for Sandler to say in that voice, I think.
Yeah, he also says abee-doobee. That one.
Abee-doobee,
Yeah.
Which I'm excited to talk about the Sandler voice because I think this is, you know, it's, you know, very present in the movie. So.
Do you remember the first time you heard the Sandler voice? Was it before Billy Madison or was it on SNL?
The first time I heard, oh God, no, it's not one of those things that like, you know, I instantly latched onto or something. Like it's not like, I mean, now it's something that's like, you know, obviously there's one of the first associations you make with Sandler is the voice, but I can't really pinpoint because we're just launching in, right? Are we going in on Sandler?
Yeah, we're going. Just we'll you know.
All right, because here's my question. I fucking hate that voice. What the fuck? What is that?
No, I have an interesting. Okay, I have a couple.
It doesn't work. I hated it, and this is probably going to color. You're going to start getting the feel of how this show's going to go for me.
Yeah.
That voice sucks,
well,
and I know it's associated with him, but it sucks. It's awful.
One thing I'm going to give Billy Madison credit for, and this I think stands the test of time, is that the film opens on the voice.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
It's him.
It does.
And so right there, it's like you're either on board or you're not right away, which actually I really appreciate. It's like you got to be with, and we can go into it more, but it's, and you know, because I will say, like, sometimes you go into a film and like, you know, you're sort of lukewarm, which I think is like a really bad place, actually. It's like, I want to be all in or all out. I don't want to be like drifting in a movie. And
not only do I agree, but we find ourselves in the middle a lot more with the stuff we revisit for the show than I would have thought, to be honest with you. So I completely agree with that.
And that's the thing. Like, and also one thing about Sandler generally is I think his career is like that. It's kind of like all of his comedies, like love him or hate him, they all take big swings. And look, you could argue you hate most of them or you hate all of them, but even his dramas, it's like he works with like really like there's not a lot of like middle ground with him. Like I feel like he either kind of like gets it or it's like a horrible failure, and which is something that's like it's something that makes him one of the most, whether love him or hate him, I think it's pretty hard to dispute that he's one of the most interesting and fascinating like creators working, and I would argue I feel like that's a pretty easy case to make, but people might be
I would agree with that just based on fucking, you know, the last 3 years, considering that he did like, you know, the Ridiculous Six for Netflix, and then he did the Do-Over with David Spade also for Netflix, and then he was in the Meyerowitz Stories, and you were like, whoa, that was a pretty good performance. And then he did another like the week of with Chris Rock and Sandy Wexler, and then he does Uncut Gems, and you're like, whoa, what the fuck?
Find me a filmmaker who's making like Oscar-nominated content, but then also making like Beverly Hills Chihuahua or the equivalent. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
that doesn't exist like on the other side of the camera, and really like it's pretty damn rare with an actor. But I digress. We can talk Billy Madison. I'm sorry.
So back to the voice. Is it like what? My original question still stands. What the fuck?
Okay, I think in this film, in particular, it makes a lot of sense in the world of the film because this is a man-child, and that's a very important part of the character is that you need to get right off the bat that this looks like a grown man, but this is really like a 7-year-old, and they establish that immediately with him, you know, doing the voice and doing the smiley face with the sunscreen, you know. You can argue about like that some of that stuff is superfluous. You could literally start the movie on him coming in and like having the soup at the table with everyone and accomplishes the same thing. But there's a lot at work in the movie because like this is Sandler at the height of his SNL stardom. Like, you know, you can see that he wasn't edited much, like, and this is one of the first times he got to do that where like he gets to do whatever he wants on screen, and they're banking on just putting a camera on this guy doing whatever, like it's gonna like just like land with people.
So does he control the voice?
That's it.
I don't understand. Like, am I supposed to know that he does? Let's say this is the first time I'm going to watch an Adam Sandler movie. Do I have to have the previous knowledge that this guy does this voice? Because I associate him with the voice. I do not know the origin of the voice. I don't know when he uses or doesn't use it, and I think it's the least funny thing he does. I think when he talks, he sounds like a normal person.
Yeah.
He knows how to act, and when he yells, it's quite funny. But the voice is just the worst thing to happen. So, like, do you just accept that he's a guy who does this regardless of what the character is, or is it like you say, this is a man who does not have the control over a 7-year-old's personality overcoming him at moments without any kind of warning? Because I straight up do not get it, and I think there was a time when I laughed at it, and I watched this movie twice in the last week, and I couldn't fucking stand the voice. To my surprise, because I do remember that being funny at a certain time.
It's tough when you're watching the film, maybe 20 years after you saw it or whatever, and like the voice now has a life of its own. So like, yeah, there's no way. Like there's been SNL sketches about the voice, So yeah,
even in Funny People, where Sandler plays like more or less a version of himself. There in the beginning of that movie, he's meeting fans and he's like, "Yeah, but I do," like to one of them, and like that's basically him just doing like the character he plays in Funny People is George Simmons, but like that's basically like him doing Sandler, like a version of himself, and commenting on that. And I just want to quickly say, I love that your question about the voice, Bear, is what the fuck, because I want to make this known. So last night when I was watching it, 30 seconds in is when you start hearing this Dawn Tan Lotion. 30 seconds in,
yeah,
Zoe, who has never seen Billy Madison, literally goes, "What the fuck, babe?" And that was her reaction.
Was she watching it, or did she just overhear that from somewhere?
She overheard it, like, because I think she was on her iPad or something, and I was like, "Look, I have to watch this movie. I know you're not going to like it. It's not going to be for you, but like, I'm going to watch it for the podcast." And she's like, "Okay." And then she's like doing something on her iPad, and then she just hears it, and she's like, "What the fuck, babe?" And then it keeps going, and then like he starts doing like the gibberish, like eating the soup, like and then ha ha ha, shut up, and then she goes, "Oh my God, babe, this is like my nightmare." and got up and I think and then once he grabbed the old guy's hand and was like, oh, she was like, "I'm out of here," and went upstairs.
You drove her out of the room?
Yeah, I was like,
That's
sorry, I gotta do it. But I was laughing. I was like, fine, good, get the hell out of here. Beat
it. Quoting Happy Gilmore as you
it's true.
Yeah.
But wait, Oren, so Billy Madison, do you remember when you saw it for the first time?
I don't remember. I recall like, so my I was not allowed to watch any Adam Sandler as a kid. Like my parents thought he was just like, satanic or something, and they would not let me watch any of his films.
Wow. The reason I say wow is not like I know exactly what you mean. Like my dad could not stand the guy either.
Right, like Big Daddy, all the films I was dying to see, my parents wouldn't let me see. So I feel like I got to him kind of late. I think it would have been in high school when I really like started watching Sandler. So I think it would have been around there, like I think early on in high school, which is so funny because I was like starting to get into like European films and like then was, but also like loved Billy Madison.
You'd rent Bicycle Thieves and then Mr. Deeds.
And even with comedy, I was watching like
Stalker and Little Nicky.
No, but okay. Well, God, it's so hard for me not to just like go off about Sandler's whole career. So I'm really trying to stay to Billy Madison. But I just remember thinking like when I first saw it, I was like, wow, this guy just has a magnetic on-screen personality. Like just like little things like him on the staircase when he's like, dancing after the interaction with
I'll tumble for you.
And I remember like it's funny to watch it again now, but like I remember thinking like, wow, everyone when I first saw it, like, wow, everyone in this movie's funny, and how like that did really hold up for me. I was like, kind of like it's for me. I was like, oh my god, Bradley Whitford is hilarious. Like I was like taking notes and I was rewatching it. Like Chris Farley, when he has the first thing when Sandler. No, it's not Sandler. It's one of the kids throws something in him when he's driving. And his little
wrecked me. And I'll just tell you, I hated this movie rewatching it. I laughed so fucking hard. Chris, like just that moment where he's just turning red, like he just like wills himself into that state is so fucking funny.
And there's so much there, like, and that's the thing that was missing from his bad comedies. It's like when you have the people around so in bed, like there's a whole character backstory in Chris Farley's like pumping blood vessel above his eyebrow. And I know that bus driver. Like, it's amazing. It's like it's like 5 seconds on screen.
Yeah, it's basically nothing, and I was dying. Yeah,
it's amazing.
Yeah,
that was also. Go ahead.
Last thing, it's the kind of thing that I hate when people dismiss that in comedy. People are just like, oh, it's lowbrow. It's like Chris Farley's a genius, and this is like that's a perfect little case study of why he's a genius and why if you threw in someone else to be that bus driver, they wouldn't have gotten it. But he got it. Like, and you have to give Sandler credit for amassing that kind of talent into his stuff.
Yeah,
I agree. The people who fill out the edges of this movie are awesome.
So fun.
And I'm one of these idiots who like just looking at Norm Macdonald will make me laugh.
Oh yeah,
like, I am on that wavelength. It's surgical use of Norm Macdonald.
Dude, the line when they're like,
I know what you're gonna say,
the poop on the guy's lawn, and he goes, "This is the best night of my life."
I was gonna say when they're all watching the news report.
Yes, that one is
that's incredible.
Amazing.
Maybe it's somebody else.
Yeah.
And then I look at him.
That is, that one.
Yeah, that is genius. But I agree with you, Barry. Anything Norm says, I just crack up at. I remember watching. There's an old clip of him on Conan in like 96 or 7, and he's on there with he was the first guest, and then an actress came out, and I'm forgetting her name, but she was in a movie coming out. She was promoting a movie that she had done with Carrot Top, the comedian, and so she's promoting this movie. And Conan's like, okay, yeah, so what's this movie called again? And then Norm, who's just sitting there, like, like on the side, his interview's done. He just goes, I know what it's going to be called. And then Conan's like, oh, you do? What is it? And he's like, and he goes, and Norm goes, if it's got Garrett Top in it, you know what a good name for it would be? Box Office Poison. Like in front of this actress who's like promoting this movie.
Oh god.
And then she was like, I'm in it too, and she goes, it's called Chairman of the Board. And then Norm just goes, oh, is board spelled B-O-R-E-D?
Oh, that's good. That's fucking
it's
funny.
So good. But with so like speaking of like Norm, and I guess to a lesser extent Norm, to a much bigger extent Chris Farley. This was the first time I this is the first time I saw like a really big star in a movie that was like a cameo. And I remember being like, wait, this isn't a Chris Farley movie, but Chris Farley is in it. Even as a kid, I remember because I knew who Chris Farley was, and I was like, wait, but it's not Tommy Boy. And what's he doing here? And like, and he's like, and it's only a little part. Like, why is it only a little part? But looking back, that was the first time of understanding like, oh, people put their friends in their movies and they do little cameos and they do little things. And like, and this also speaks to, again, we're going to keep it on Billy, but like this started a whole thing for Sandler of like just putting his friends in movies. I mean, how many times has Steve Buscemi showed up in his movies? And he's always got those two guys, Alan Covert and Peter Dante. And like, he's got all his friends are always in his movie. I mean, like people just want to work with the guy, I feel like.
And to Bear's point about like the edges of the movie, I think like that really is like the strength of the movie, to be honest with you. And I think you can kind of see like, if you look at some of the comedies that I think he did a better job with, like, Wedding Singer, a couple other things like, that like, yeah, the meat of this movie is like, kind of I take it or leave it. But like I was literally like, when I was rewatching, I was like taking some notes of like things that I just thought were so fucking funny. And so I think that like from that standpoint, like I enjoyed a rewatch of it. And it's so short. It's an hour and 20, I think.
Mercifully short.
It's
Hour,
like painless.
hour 25, yeah.
Yeah, it's painless. It's really like quick and dirty. And I think that like the people who fill out the edges aren't asked to do too much. They really just kind of come in, come out, and you don't get like there's no like fatigue factor with them. Like they really are kind of used very well and kind of sparingly. Even Bradley Whitford, who I think is like borderline, like, you know, gets on my, you know, there's really funny moments with him, but like I could have done a little less of like of some of his over the top stuff. But like generally, like I think they did a really, really good job of using everyone.
Yeah, I agree. The fringe players are, I don't even know if you'd call them fringe players, but like, yeah, the people kind of like making up. I mean, even Juanita, who you could help me shave my armpits, like, and he's like, "Oh my God, I'll go to school," like all that stuff. And also it's just like it just reminded me, not that I really needed a reminder, like how much this movie was just like in my lexicon growing up. Like I quoted this thing relentlessly, and frankly, my friends and I, like, it still will come up. Oren and I probably quote it once a week without even really realizing it. It's not like and that's the thing with movie quotes. I feel like when people who don't quote movies, I feel like they sometimes think like, what do you guys do? Just call each other and quote movies? And it's like, yeah, but it's not in the way that you think. It's not like we call each other and say, remember this. We're having a conversation and things come up and it just reminds you of, you know, certain things. Like, I don't know, like sometimes when I'm so hungry, I say like, well, I ate some Triscuit crackers in the car. You should have had some. And it just happens to come up in conversation.
Was that product placement?
No, because I don't think you saw it. But maybe. I remember
I just wrote down, fuck, Triscuits are the worst cracker, because that's how I feel.
They are bad.
Wait, terrible.
So
they went out of their way to call Triscuits delicious.
So Oren, you discovered this in high school. Bear, when did you discover Billy Madison?
This had to have been like 7th grade, because I remember like moving to Chicago, and a lot of kids in middle school were just really into this movie. So I don't remember the first time I've seen it. I'm guessing it was probably like a sleepover, like, you know, 12, 13-year-old kids sleeping over watching this movie. There was a time when it was syndicated a lot, but I don't really watch cable anymore. So I don't know if that's still the case, but I think you're right. I think it is like 85 minutes. That's perfect to pump in, you know, some commercials and get that out to 2 hours and play it on TBS or whatever. So I suspect it was on quite a bit. For whatever reason, I own this on DVD, and that's what I watched it on.
Me too.
And I don't know about yours, but my transfer looked like it was made by a friend of the show, Khalil's dad. It looked like dog shit. It looked like someone had just recorded it straight off of like an over-the-air broadcast.
A VHS, yeah. The DVD transfer is terrible. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned you remember seeing it on TV a lot. That was the first time I remember seeing this movie for the first time. I was probably 10 and my sister, I think, was 11 or 12. And my parents went out for dinner, and it was one of the first times they like left us home alone for a couple hours. And so they were kind of like, Sarah, you're in charge. And it was right around the time that The Waterboy came out. And it probably was the movie's like the network premiere, and it was on ABC. And I remember seeing a commercial for it, and I was like, if you like Adam Sandler in The Waterboy, like watch him get wet for the first time in Billy Madison. And it showed him like doing the slip and slide.
Watch him get wet for the first time. Yeah,
something weirdly suggestive like that. But what's also really weird about it was like, I remember thinking like, oh, cool, Billy, like Adam Sandler in a water park. And then the movie, of course, has like nothing to do with that. I think they were just using The Waterboy as a reason for people to watch Billy Madison, obviously.
But Billy Madison was before the Waterboy.
Oh, right? Yeah, I'm talking about it was
on TV.
They were using the fact that Waterboy was out.
Like The Waterboy was out. It was a big hit, and people were like, people are going to like watch Sandler's other stuff.
Right.
And I remember we were home, and I was like, oh, let's watch it. And I just remember like laughing so hard at a lot. What's weird to me is that I agree with you, Bear. I'm not a huge fan of that voice. I do think it's necessary for this this movie. and the character, but I also like I'm not laughing at the "Stop looking at me, Swan" anymore.
No, that is one of my biggest problems. I mean, like all the stuff you guys just said. Allow me to take the other position for everything you just said.
Yeah.
So that, like, this being just seared into my cortex in middle school, definitely has impacted my ability to enjoy it later in life. Like those lines, most of the lines from this movie, I'm not laughing at, and I know I went through a period of time where it was just quoted all the time. Yeah. And the problem I have is there's nothing to revisit. So there's not many deeper lines that are funny upon further review. Mm-hmm. If you grew up when we grew up and this was part of your childhood, you've heard every joke 1,000 times. So stuff that works, like the norm stuff is a little out there. Like that's not necessarily going to click with kids, like why that shit's funny. And I think Chris Farley transcends most, limitations of rewatchability because he's so fucking funny. Yeah. But this isn't like a layered comedy where you can find some deeper lines that are funny later in life. And not only that, but like, I do stand by the people who kind of fill out the edges of the frame here are very interesting, but that's all you have. Like this movie is just a vehicle for Adam Sandler to do jokes. Yeah. And it's not a character-based comedy. The plot sucks. So if you take that away, all you have is gags and whether or not they land. So it's smart that they do have good bit players to come in and do funny shit. That's all you have. That is the entire basis of comedy here. So I agree that it sometimes works, but it's not like there's another option. Right. Like I said, I read a bunch of shit about this movie because I knew it. I mean, Adam Sandler usually gets reviewed like shit, and I don't always think that's deserved, especially because he does have an audience for, the Ridiculous Six or whatever. Like people watch this stuff.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 500 million hours or
so
some
it's like,
shit.
He's always able to find an audience. So like, do I care what a critic thinks about something that's clearly aimed at a specific target and is likely hitting it? Not really, but I think it was either Roper it was Gene Siskel, R.I.P., said, you don't have a good motivation for the character's behavior. And that took off a lot of the sheen off this movie for me.
The fact that we don't understand why he's like so infantilized.
No idea why he's so infantilized. He's actually the villain of the piece. Eric is mostly concerned with the people who work for Madison hotels losing their jobs if Billy takes over the company. He has a pretty altruistic motive for not wanting Billy in, and yet I'm supposed to sympathize with.
Wait a minute. I want to push back on that. Because
that is his stated goal numerous times.
Yeah, but
I don't agree with doing a school shooting because of it, but he is more motivated than Billy for any single thing that happens in the film.
Okay. I feel wow, okay. I feel like yes, that is the character's stated goal, but I don't think that's the character's actual goal. I mean, like this is
where is that in the text though? I mean, he's pissed he's not going to get the company, and he asked the guy. I mean, he's a little out of touch, and Carl isn't. So he does ask the expert how many people work here, and then uses it as his argument for why Billy shouldn't get the company.
He also can't answer a question about business ethics at the academic decathlon.
Which is supposed to hold more weight than it does. I mean, we're just kind of told this guy doesn't have any ethics. Yet, by any standards, especially now in this fucking pandemic, this guy's goal is to keep people from being unemployed, and he's an asshole.
Or that's his tactic to gain sympathy from the person who could hand over the company, which is how it reads to me. There's no point in the piece where I'm like, he
cares about other employees. I don't think he cares about.
I think you're bringing that. I don't think that's in the text. I think you're bringing that.
Maybe. I mean, but the character's pretty overt.
I don't mind the main character being the villain, by the way. I have no problem with that. But he's a point of view character. That's fine. I don't care if he's a good or bad person, but he's a bad person.
Yeah, he's a flawed character. I mean, look, this is a deep, resonant.
I think the thing is that you still like Billy. You don't like Eric. You're like, what?
I disagree. I'm told to like Billy the whole movie, and I have to swallow this romantic plot about this teacher who likes him for very thin reasons.
No, that's actually
which does not play as well older in life. I'm sorry, I'll shut up. I've shat on enough.
No.
No, it's okay.
It doesn't play well, Bear, but you bring up a really good point because in rewatching this, okay, the scene where Ernie pees his pants and Sandler covers for him is a really sweet
It
scene.
is.
I
Very
agree.
sweet. Almost
Very
out of
sweet.
character levels of sweet from him.
Well,
We
here's the
don't
thing.
see anything before that leads us to believe that this is a guy who's going to have sympathy for a child. And that it's
Well-
really nice. It is I mean, if you're going to boil it down, I mean, if you have 85 minutes, you're going to do one scene that shows the teacher that he's got a heart of gold. They did nail it.
That's
it's
a
good
great
scene.
scene.
But
It's a good scene.
But it seems really weird compared to the rest of his behavior in the movie.
Yes, I mean
But no, hang on. I want to jump in here. I don't
Yeah.
think it's that weird. I had the exact same reaction you had, both of you, when I watched that scene. I was like, oh, that's actually that like it hit me a little different watching it as like a 32-year-old because I was like, that's a really sweet, nice thing to do for a kid who's embarrassed. And I don't think it's out of character because I think at that point he has accepted that these kids like him. And he's like, yeah, I'll do whatever for these kids. Like, these kids are fun. I like them and whatever. I'm cool with being like maybe their big brother or whatever.
Well,
I understand that, like, what you're saying, Bear, about like up until that point, we haven't necessarily seen anything that's, on the level of sweet.
He makes fun of a kid with a stutter.
Yeah, that's terrible.
Hard.
Yeah, you know what though, Bear? Like, here's the thing. Like, on the surface, he's motivated in that moment, right, to help Ernie because he's trying to get with the teacher, right?
Right.
But I think they did a really smart thing in that they don't, when he sees the kid having the accident, they don't cut to Sandler looking at the teacher or something. He's fixated on the kid and trying to help the kid. And it's the teacher, Bridget Wilson, what's her name again?
Yeah. Mrs. Sampras.
Bridget Wilson, yeah.
Mrs. Sampras,
Bridget Wilson Sampras. I saw her at an Apple store, by the way.
How's she doing?
Looked great. Looked like she was, a really doting mother. And I think they were getting their kid her and Sampras. I think they were getting their kid a computer for college or something. It was a couple of years ago. She looked like more or less the same. She looks like she didn't age at all.
How does Pete look?
Like a vampire. Like not a vampire. He's really hairy. I don't know why.
Why do you think vampires are hairy?
I think I meant to say Wolfman. I meant to say Wolfman, and I got confused, and I said vampire. But I don't know, for whatever reason, I guess I feel like he looks a little like Bela Lugosi. I don't know why. And this is also the second time I've mentioned Bela Lugosi on this podcast.
I would love to look like Bela Lugosi later in life.
Pretty hard.
Bela Lugosi's dead.
No, I don't think it's. I don't mean it as an insult. Bela Lugosi was a good-looking dude. He was a scary-looking Dracula.
Sampras looks scary, you think?
No, not scary, hairy. And I don't know. I think when Bear said, how does he look? I thought of his hair, and I think I meant to say Wolfman, but for whatever reason, vampire came out, and now I think I'm trying to defend and justify it when I should just say I should have said Wolfman.
Gotcha.
But it's fine.
I'm just checking in on him. No pressure. Just want to know what's going on.
Well, yeah, he hasn't played. What was the last time he retired in 2003, 2002?
It was a while. I remember him
it was a long time ago.
slapping it with old Baldy. Fucking
Agassi.
Yeah.
Wow. Good. Oh man, good times those two.
But anyway, Oren, you were talking about the scene.
Well, no, I think that's a scene that really like held up for me. You kind of see the seeds that end up growing like Sandler's more like slightly mature comedies.
Well, I also think Big Daddy was. Yeah. I remember seeing that was the first Sandler movie I saw in theaters, and that has a very like a lot of sweetness in it. Like I remember even like getting almost like choked up at parts when they come to take away the kid, and he's really good. He's like he's emotional.
You see some like of the early seeds of that in Billy Madison, even like when he goes back. I actually really like how he keeps going back to the elementary school, and it's clearly not just for her. Like he does connect to those kids, which I thought was really sweet. And I think look, if the movie opened and you need that movie to open with you, like I don't say despising the character, but like you do kind of need to recognize like this guy's not fit to run a company, and I think that they do a good enough job of that while it's subjective whether or not you think he's like funny when they just like let him do his thing on like whether or not you think like him on the staircase, him interacting with Juanita, like him in the pool, like it's subjective, but like I just remember as a kid, like thinking like, wow, who is this fucking guy? Like
Yeah.
losing my shit at everything he does on screen. And like,
Yeah.
it doesn't hold up the same way, but obviously, but I guess like in rewatching it, like I just look, it's not something that's gonna stay in the canon for me. It's not something I'm gonna like revisit every so often, like some comedies that I really love. But I appreciate like getting to go back and kind of see like, you know, the birth of this kind of like really divisive, but like kind of a comedy legend. Like, and I liked getting to go back and just kind of see like this was him kind of trying to figure out how to lure an audience in, you know, with one of his like just self-driven vehicles, one of his comedies, and I appreciated that. But it, yeah, to what you said a little earlier, Bear, like it wasn't like I was peeling back certain. There were a couple little things like the business ethics thing that was over my head when I was a kid, and like I like laughed kind of hard when I thought that was a funny thing to do to the Eric character. Which
I didn't get it either until this time. Yeah. I was like, oh wow, yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of, you know, but there's like some stuff like just a little like Steve Buscemi, like, you know, putting on the lipstick, I like lost it, but I was like still was really funny to me. Like those little things that like I was like, it's a lot to ask of a comedy that you like when you were like 10 years old to still make you like laugh out loud, like even if it's just for like 6 times. Like that's a lot to ask. And this movie does do that. And it sounds like at least we can find some common ground there, Bear. Like at least that it has that.
You know, I don't hate every part of this movie. I'm never watching it again. But the thing that struck me this time watching it, which I don't know if I just didn't think about it this way, but I don't think that this movie has any intention of actually being good. But I do think it has every intention of being extremely absurd. And that came through in a way that never did when I watched this when I was young.
Yeah,
same.
I mean, the plot is very, very thin. It's insane. But they then match that with a bunch of shit that is just crazy out there. Like none of this shit is grounded in reality, and I really appreciate it. And the jokes that work the best are when they really lean into the type of stuff where they put him in situations that you can relate to having been a kid. Like when he makes Ernie call the teacher and essentially asks through him, do you like me? Like,
yeah,
no one has to admit that. You've done that with a girl. There's stuff like that that's really funny. There things like, you know, just being awkward as hell in high school, that does work. But you know, if you think this is a serious movie and it gets to the point where they're doing an absurd musical number in a fountain, I think you've misread their intention. Like it's way out there comedy. Yeah. And some of that is awesome. Most of it's bad. But that commitment to just being nowhere near grounded, this is going to be completely absurd. We're going to throw a lot of weird stuff out there, is pretty cool. Now, if you watch this for the first time now, like if you read a bunch of like audience reviews and shit, a lot of people, what I found, this is not even specific to Billy Madison, but a lot of times if you read audience reviews, that's just a pit of despair. No one can articulate why they enjoy a movie at most of the time.
Or why they don't enjoy it.
Right. They just are categorically incapable of doing it. So there's a lot of reviews for this that are like 5 stars, comedy classic. A lot of throwing around the word classic. If you were to watch this as a 13-year-old now, you would be very, very confused as to why it's held in high regard. This would be a very confusing thing for someone to experience, like Zoe for the first time. That, I mean,
yes.
If you hear this is it's a legend of comedy, you got to watch this. Even as I think this is intended for 13-year-olds, but kids who were born in 2007 are going to watch this and be like, "What the fuck are my parents on about?" Like, I don't get this.
That speaks
really?
I think so. I don't think anyone's. I think that this is a very confusing level of esteem that's ascribed to this movie.
I don't
know. I think it's very unearned.
Yeah.
Because at this point, it was almost, you could make the argument it's kind of breaking comedy ground to have something this absurd in like a wide theatrical release. A lot of the reviews were, at the time, were comparing it to Dumb and Dumber because it's like, oh my God, this lowbrow dumb humor. I'm not opposed to any of that stuff. I think that shit's funny. But I think now that is so commonplace that the the boundaries that were broken here are it's bullshit. You know, you're gonna try to pitch this to kids that watch Logan Paul. You know, that I can't.
I see what you're
the
saying.
fuck's going on in some of that shit, and kids are laughing.
You're speaking to like some kind of deeper societal, like, because like, I could say the same thing about like To Kill a Mockingbird. You know what I mean? Like if I gave that book,
I'm gonna make you make that argument.
If I gave To Kill a Mockingbird,
show your work on To Kill a Mockingbird. What? That's a crazy analogy. And I don't mean this to be disrespectful. Give it to me because that sounds really interesting.
I'll make it for you right now. I'm not shitting on To Kill a Mockingbird. It's one of my favorite books, and that's why I brought it up. And like, if I found as you said, a big Logan Paul fan, it's a perfect hypothetical. You think they're gonna sit down and read that book? No. And I'm speaking from experience, as Andrew and I have both served as nannies. Or Manny's, if you will. No, we have. So these exact kids you're talking about, these kids who are on Fortnite 24/7, who literally don't even play video games. They sit down to watch
other people,
which is unimaginable. That is a level of boredom that I can never. What the fuck?
But those are the kids you're talking about, and I actually disagree. I think they would sit down, and I think that's exactly the kind of kid that would like The Voice. Frankly.
Madison, when you were nannying, did you introduce kids to stuff like this? Like, was it well received, or was it?
I don't remember introducing the Billy Madison. Do you, Andrew?
Well, it's funny. The kids we babysat for, their mom is, and her sisters are all in Punch Drunk Love. Yeah. They play his sisters. Because
so we're gonna have to explain the dynamic. Are you both doing double time as babysitters?
Yeah. Like, okay. So basically, Oren met this family in 2014. What was it, through Sitter City or was it something else?
Through a site where you
through a site. And there were 3 boys. I think they're probably like fucking 16 now, which is crazy. They're driving, I think. This was in like 2014, 2015. And there were, 3 kids. They were wild. And it got to a point where I think Oren got another job. And I was looking for, either some extra income or a job, which, as you are wont to do in this fucking town. And
no shame.
So Oren was like, dude, you should come and, like, I'll see if Julie or, their mom, he was like, I'll see if Julie needs an extra hand or something. And she did. And so, like, we would tag team every once in a while. Like Julie would hit us up, hey, is one of you available? But, like, it was, she paid well. And it was, like a bunch of times a week we would pick up from school and just help them do their homework. A great story is I was teaching the youngest son, named Theo, some vocab words. I think he was in like 5th grade at the time, 4th or 5th grade. And one of his words was threadbare. And so I was reading him I would read him the word and then he would have to give me the definition. And so I got to threadbare and I was like, okay, Theo, what does threadbare mean? And he was kind of confused. He was like, oh, and he didn't know. And I was like, okay, it means shabby and worn out. And he goes, okay. And I was like, okay, can you use it in a sentence? And he goes, and then he starts to smile and he goes, Owen is threadbare. Talking about Oren because
wow.
I don't know where that.
Like Adam Sandler.
Yeah, because he dressed like Adam Sandler. And then it got to a point where he knew that word so well, I would quiz him on it and I'll be like, Theo, like, what does threadbare mean? And he would go, Owen. Because he couldn't say his R's, he would just say Owen instead of Oren. But yeah, there's cute little kids. But like, so that's the babysitting dynamic. But I think to Oren's point, I feel like those 3 kids that we babysat and their friends would die laughing at Billy Madison.
I totally agree.
What kind of shit were they into? I mean, how long did you go, when you were around them? Because that's a good window into kind of, a different generation's experience of stuff.
Yeah, that's a good. What did they find?
Like, do you remember what they were into? Or did they find?
They watched like that, like Wizards of Waverly Place. Like,
yeah, they watched this show called Pair of Kings and the Thundermans on Nickelodeon or Disney or something, which I had never even heard of these.
They loved Flash and the Arrow and all that shit.
And Supergirl, yeah.
Supergirl. But then they're also like, they're on their phones playing video games 24/7. I think the thing about this movie is that, like, what I appreciate about it is it's got the stuff that's gonna make us laugh, right? I mean, not a ton of it, but it's got it. Like, it's got, like, every time Chris Farley's on screen, I'm laughing. Every time Norm Macdonald's on screen, I'm laughing. I bet Buscemi, I'm laughing. Sandler has a few moments. But but it's also got the kind of lowest common denominator stuff that I think kids like of any generation will laugh at. Like just like visual gags and whatnot. So it's funny, like that's why I was like at the beginning, I was like asking you guys about like the definition of is it still good, and I feel like I lean. It's interesting. I lean towards yes because I think this movie still has a like something and like kind of like an energy. I feel like this is kind of the birth of the Sandler we know today, and so I thought it was like rewarding for me to revisit it, but I'm not gonna go like all the way and say like this is something that I'll like have to like check out every there's like
Right.
there are comedies that I'm like I have to like rewatch this like every couple of years or something and be like and I know it's like a surefire hit, but like I think I generally though it's like it's hard because we were introduced when we were so young and it I don't know. I think you're right. It really was kind of made for like, I want to say like 15-year-old boys.
It's weird. It's in the sweet spot where it's like I think it's made for like 12 to 13-year-old boys, but it's too hardcore. So like if you have parents who give a shit about you at all, like yours clearly did, mine did too. They're gonna be like, "You're not watching this," and they're right. Yeah. It's got a hard fuck right in like the first half hour of it. Like it's a movie with children, but there's some shit like he's openly talking about banging a teacher. It's that kind of like illicit stuff that you, when you're like 13, it's like, oh, it's like just out of reach. Like you really want to get your hands on it. And then maybe you build it up. So when you do, you really like it. But when you're kind of past, when you're on the other side of that, going back to that mindset, I don't feel like it works as well. I mean, I miss the days when I couldn't get my hands on everything, when like something like this was just kind of out of reach. Like I had to see it at a friend's house or something to like circumvent my parents' wishes. I really kind of miss that as much as it sucked in the moment. But you would discover stuff like this and it would really stick in your mind. That's why you would quote it to your friends, because you couldn't watch it at home. You'd have to keep it fresh by keeping all those quotes alive.
You're so right.
And that's fine. But to me, that got burned out so bad that when I revisit it now, there isn't that much there. There's less there than I thought there would be. And that's
right about that. I actually agree with you that there's less there than I thought. I think I loved it so much. It's getting a big part of it was exactly why you just said, like that it was like this forbidden fruit. I had to like circumvent my parents. I had to go like to a friend's house whose parents didn't give a shit
or you'd go to your friends who had like older brothers. That was, I mean, like again, I saw this on network.
That is the Stargate for shit you should.
Oh yeah, like neither one of us had an older brother, and in fact, Oren and Bear are the eldest. Oh, yeah. And I had an older sister, but like she wasn't into Adam Sandler movies, and so like I mean, the first time I watched this was on network TV, so all the the swears and everything was cut out. I don't even remember the first time I watched this like unedited, but I remember the first time I heard that you get your ass out there and you find that fucking dog, and I just lost my mind. I was like, holy shit.
Funny this time. That was funny.
It was funny, yeah. Well, it's like, to go off of what you were saying, Oren.
Miss Lippy's a good kindergarten teacher.
She's perfect. I know people who teach now, peers of mine who teach that level of kids. I think she's first grade.
You're right. First grade.
But she's to a T, very similar to how those people are. Like they're just always very happy, good with kids, kind of innately. And that's another thing where when she tells him to get back outside for recess, that's another situation where they're just putting him into a child situation. Right. Like that kid doesn't want to be out there, and she like kind of treats him like a child to guide him back out. Those situations that he's in,
she has great little moments, like when he first comes in and he's like, "Hey, how you doing?" And she goes, "Let's involve the class."
Yeah.
She actually has some really nice moments. And
she's a pro.
It reminds me, you mentioning the recess thing reminds me of like the wish fulfillment in this movie is so satisfying when you get it. Like that dodgeball scene held up so
well. That scene is really funny. He is
whipping balls at children's faces.
It
is awesome. It is, and there is like sometimes comedies will try to do scenes like that, and like the sound effects are doing a lot of the work. They're not really doing that here. Like he's hitting kids very hard, and like that kind of stuff and swearing at children to me is a guaranteed laugh always.
It
Like
was
just hardcore swearing at kids like in Eastbound and Down will get me to laugh every single time.
it was great.
That is great. That's true.
It's one of those movies that like has some, and you got to give a movie like this credit for it. Honestly, hate it or love it, that has some moments that are so fucking funny that you're waiting for them and you know they're coming and you're still so fucking like excited when it happens. Like it's like Chris Farley on the bus when he gets hit by the sandwich. I was like,
Yeah.
of course I knew it was coming. It's like I saw Chris Farley. Like you see him through the the mirror, and I'm like, oh my god, it's him. Like I can't fucking wait. And then it happened. Like, that was even better than I remember. Like, and you gotta, even if you hate the movie, you gotta give, like, that is fucking rare. That is hard to accomplish. Like, and you gotta give that movie credit, because a movie that generally has nothing so good about it, like, those aren't those are not there. Like,
yeah, they don't exist
in 25 years.
But I even noticed little things about, like, you know, I wouldn't say this is like a particular, it's like you don't watch this movie for the directing, but like, you know, I love the moment when it's like when they're on the stairs, because this is something that I've learned with like my directing and editing, of like this moment where they're on the stairs and he's talking to his dad in the beginning, and he's like, do you remember that spelling bee? Rock, R-O-K, and he's like, yeah, what's your point? And he's like, R-O-C-K. And then he goes, oh, and it cuts to the wide, and he's like, oh, the C is silent, and looks at it like that. Cut to the wide is so fucking funny. And it's just, and it's so quick and like, and crisp. But like, to your point, to both of your points about certain things not quite being there this time, I agree that this is an example of a movie that was just quoted ad nauseum when we were growing up. And it was just such a part of, you know, our vernacular that, yeah, watching it this time, you know, yeah, there was very few surprises. Again, the stuff that stood out to me the most was like that scene where he helps Ernie, and like, you know, little moments like that, which I thought were very sweet and well done. It hit a little different. But the thing that Bear said that I'm gonna use this for my reason why I think it's still good, is that this was such a big fucking swing, if you really think about it. If you look at it on paper now, you think like, oh, broad Adam Sandler comedy. Just, you know, what a risk the studio took. First of all, for the time, it was a risk. And second of all, in the first 5 minutes, this dude is driving a golf cart drunk, chasing an imaginary penguin. What the fuck are we watching? This is insane. This is, again, it's a big swing. And it is so absurd, and it's a great example of a movie where it really feels like the filmmakers did exactly what they wanted to do, what they thought was funny. And in my opinion, that's why it works, because it is, again, it's a big swing and it's original in terms of its execution. Maybe the premise is like, oh, big guy goes back to school. Like we've seen that with, you know, Rodney Dangerfield, and literally in back.
That's well-trodden territory. Yeah,
it's well-trodden territory, but like, the template is familiar, but the approach, you know, like, who would steal 30-bag lunches? And it's Farley and his two friends eating the kids' lunches, and they're cracking up. And also, it's like, how does he know them? Where do they come from?
And how do they get there? Yeah.
How did they get there? And again, it's just, they went for things like, I feel like I could see like Sandler and Tim Hurley as they wrote this movie being like, that would be funny. And to me, that's so, I can't think of any other word than cathartic. And the reason I think it's cathartic is because I feel like they to themselves were like, I think this would be really funny. And to know that, you know, millions of other people found that stuff funny too. They were probably like, oh, wow, like, this is amazing. Like, we were right, you know? Right. And again, does it all hold up? No, the Sandler voice doesn't make me laugh anymore. And the plot's very thin. And, you know, there are certain jokes. I mean, there's like him making fun of the kid is like, you know, like, it's not funny.
Of stuff that, you know,
and like, although I'm mad at myself when I did, probably his performance, but I did laugh when he said, kid can't even read, because I was like, Jesus, I laughed because of how inappropriate, you know, it was. But like, that's basically where I'm coming from on it in terms of, you know, and also the O'Doyle joke is so fucking funny.
That's a great running gag. But again, like,
it's amazing.
They're leaning into the absurdity of it. There's a slip on a banana peel and die joke that's set up way in advance, like a long time before it pays off. That's pretty.
I love how there's a mean O'Doyle in every grade. It's amazing.
Yeah, which is the best kind of racism, which is against Irish people because they obviously fuck like rabbits. So we'll allow it.
It's also so great because you easily could have just made the joke, there's an O'Doyle in every grade. But to kill off the O'Doyle,
the whole clan. Yeah.
So satisfying.
Oh, and they're just and all. It's like, and then I love that they just double down on it in the car. The dad, hey, who rules? O'Doyle rules.
It's another like form of wish fulfillment, and how like, God, I wish the bully, like their entire fucking family would fucking die. You know, like
I wish they would drive off a cliff, and then they do.
But that's a better executed joke than most of the jokes in this movie, though. That takes a long time.
Although I will say, my favorite joke in the whole movie, and I consider this one of the best film transitions of the 90s, when Billy's dad's at the window after he's had the conversation where Eric's like, look, you can't take over, and he goes, oh, Billy boy, when are you going to find whatever it is you're looking for? Cut to, here's a nice piece of shit, and picking up the talk through.
Yeah, that actually didn't work as well for me as I...
Oh, man.
It rolled up as well. But, that's also because Andrew and I've quoted like a million.
Yeah, that's true.
So, I don't know. It was,
I still think it's really funny.
It's a masterful piece of filmmaking, for that.
Also, what's up with the pickle race? Does anyone even know what that is? Is that a thing?
I love that.
No idea. No idea where that comes from. There's a scene I don't even think it's in the movie. In the book, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, where what's his name? Jack
R.P. McMurphy.
McMurphy does it with a tab of butter, but that's the only thing.
That scene, yeah.
I don't think that's in the movie, but it's I don't know where the fuck pickle races come from outside of that.
Right, yeah.
It's like a minor attempt to add some like different shades to that trio, like their friendship. It's like just a half-ass attempt to like give them a little color.
Well, what's also interesting too is like speaking of big swings is like, yeah, the pickle race isn't that absurd, but like that clown dying, or not dying, but like bleeding out.
Well, he gets a hemorrhage in his head.
Yeah, which is hilarious, but like he just falls on the ground. They're all like, ha ha, ha, and he's bleeding out of his mouth. That's another example of like, what the fuck is this?
There's a fucking musical number.
Yeah, I mentioned the musical number, yeah.
Oh, you did? Okay, sorry.
I don't like it. I do like musical numbers. This one I just find to be annoying. But again,
I understand that.
If you get to that point in the movie and you're upset that this movie is dumb, like there's a fucking musical number where they bring back a dead clown. Like this is not trying to be a serious film. Like it's just a vehicle for jokes.
Right.
At that point, it should be clear. It's like when Neil Patrick Harris comes out in SS gear at the end of Starship Troopers. It's like, this is the movie you're watching. And I don't have a problem with that. The funnier, as tired as I think the musical is, the Jim Downey's delivery of that line at the end, that line has been done to death, just to death. Like I really didn't feel like I ever needed to hear that again. That is such a good deadpan delivery. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's great. And he's talking about the principal. Mr. Madison, what you have just said.
Yeah.
Oh,
sorry. Like that's not so ubiquitous. Like you see that like once a day on the internet, someone will quote that. But that guy's delivery of that just to like no joy in his face as he rips the entire head and asshole off of Billy Madison is really good.
And it's so good because the character, that guy's like previous jokes are so like did not land at all, like zero. Like
not even the dirty
about
tramp.
his wife. Yeah.
No, not at all. Like I was like get out of here. And then like luckily he gets that amazing moment of redemption.
Yeah, that is a great moment
for the actor to deliver this like so memorable. Andrew used to leave me voicemails quoting that. Like
the other thing that I did for Oren once, one of the hardest I've ever made him laugh was maybe you were coming home from somewhere or whatever, and I went, "Hey, Tubby," which is what Eric says to Max, the wrestler, and like Oren fucking fell on the floor.
Just a great pull. Yeah, just a great pull.
But yeah, I mean, my verdict is that it's interesting because we just did Space Jam, and I was saying things like, I can't really call this a good film, and, no character development. What's it even about? Whatever. But I think part of why Space Jam didn't hold up for me personally was that I had only seen it like once or twice in my life, both as a kid, and I remember loving it. And I hadn't seen it since, and everyone around me is like, yo, Space Jam is the fucking shit. It's still great, blah, blah, blah. And so my expectations were way too high. And so I didn't watch – it's not like I watched Space Jam and was like, this movie fucking sucks. I was just like, this is fine. It's not as good as you remember. Like, everybody calm down. But the reason I'm bringing that up is because – you could say the same things about Billy Madison right here. You really could. Like, you know.
It's less naked marketing than Space Jam is.
Yeah, Space Jam is really like studio engineered product.
I do feel like you should take a movie on its own terms.
Yes.
Like, you know, that's why like reading criticism of Adam Sandler's work that's a dead end. I don't know that he has greater goals than trying to make people laugh. He actually might not have greater goals than just hanging out with his friends, and if people laugh at it, that's fine. So like,
there's nothing wrong with that.
I don't have a problem with it. Like a movie like Billy Madison, I think it's bad. I don't think there's as much there as you remember. I think your memories of it as a kid are better than what is there. I think there's some.
I definitely would agree with that.
Very serious structural problems with the story, but there is shit I laughed at, and
yeah.
I can't imagine watching this and not laughing at anything. I'm laughing a lot less than I did when I was a kid, but I'm also not really the intended audience here. So to come out and like really shit on this guy for just trying to make people laugh, they're like, oh, this is so lowbrow. It's like, I think that's what he set out to do, and I think he did accomplish it. So what do you?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like that's an impossible ask to have a movie that you laugh at the same amount or more as an adult versus as a child.
Right.
It's literally impossible for a variety of reasons. But like, so I think to take a movie that you enjoyed and laughed at a ton as a child, and to find like maybe double-digit laughs is pretty impressive, I would argue. Like, I'm serious, because think about it. It's like, okay, if it's really like just lowest common denominator, talking like slapstick, like physical comedy, it's like, okay, you're not. It's like, I don't know what the drop off is going to be. I've been told I got to be quiet, or I'm getting passionate. But the drop off is going to be pretty, considerable, right? Like, you're not going to laugh at the guy slipping on a slippery floor in the same way, right? As a kid, and if you want to talk about like things that are over your head as a kid that you'll laugh at as an adult, like sure, and we saw even a few of those, not very many, Billy Madison. There's some of that. So I think I really do think it's a feat to have a film where you laughed as a kid and as an adult. And there's obviously going to be drop off, but I think the tricky thing is, like, Space Jam is interesting. Is to make a quick analogy, it doesn't really deliver like big laughs.
Absolutely not. There is almost nothing funny in that movie.
No,
some chuckles, clever lines, but yeah.
There's a couple, and it's all Looney Tunes, right? It's you're laughing at the slap.
You're more just like in awe of Michael Jordan and the Looney Tunes.
There's actually not that many gags. There's not that many setups for Looney Tunes. Like,
I think
the
Daffy
right
has a couple one-liners. Like that's really what you're banking on.
Yeah, Daffy's the funniest one for sure.
Yeah. Daffy's funny, but like when I revisit Looney Tunes, like the funniest shit. The Wile E. Coyote stuff is awesome. Yeah. And that's just very simple.
And Bugs being very well spoken is very funny too.
And Bugs doing
funny. Bugs has some funny
shit.
interplay with the aliens, but I think that I mean it has, you have to have a very specific point of view to just like the nostalgia factor of 90. I feel like half the people who like love Space Jam are really just there for like the opening credits because they're so satisfying to watch like all the footage of Michael Jordan. I think if it's this thing of, again, it all comes back to like how subjective all this shit that we're doing on this podcast is like, if it mattered to you as a kid, it's probably still going to matter to you in some ways as an adult. And even our guests that we had for Space Jam, like they agreed with Bear and I that was like, it was not as easy of a watch as I remember, but they were like, but I can't bring myself to say no, because it's just like, it meant so much to me then. And also Liz made such a good point of saying 2020 has already taken so much from us. I can't let them have this.
I reject this premise. My promise to you and the listeners is I will never get off the gas pedal of an opinion I have. But I will never soften it.
But Bear, even you have to admit, like, take this movie in a vacuum from when you were a kid and now, and you've got laughs. you're not giving this movie.
Well, I really love your concept of double-digit laughs. Is funny to me because I imagine you like a bouncer at a nightclub, like clicking them off with that thing, like just checking. Like, where are we here? Like, we're at 45 minutes.
That's a lot. Think of a
Yeah.
movie you expected to be funny. Maybe you got to think of a movie that you went in with expectations and it really just was not fucking funny. Like it just really wasn't. Guarantee you didn't laugh double-digit times. Guarantee it. Not to say that's the barometer, but like if you hated this fucking movie watching it now, I guarantee you're not. I mean, you're agreeing with us about certain like moments that are objectively fucking funny.
Yeah, no, there's the problem with stuff like this, especially comedy that you experience when you're a kid, is that it will hit differently. So I think we're both on the same page that you shouldn't quantify laughter, even though that is funny. But the stuff that works versus the stuff that doesn't work, there's more here that doesn't work.
Yeah, of course.
And like the stuff that does work is a little bit different. Like I keep bringing up the incredible absurd nature of the stuff in this movie plays better as an adult. Whereas as a kid, I wasn't really thinking about that because you're in school. It's like too familiar to you. When you get older, you're like, oh, this is just ridiculous. The part where I diverge is that this is in no world is this a comedy classic. It doesn't hit the same as it did as a kid. I think if you showed this to someone who somehow didn't see it, like Zoe, they're going to be confused by the classic status of this film.
Right.
And I would challenge anyone who really loves this movie to watch it again now, because I guarantee it is not as good as you think it is.
Right, because it wasn't really made for like a 30-year-old person. So if you're watching for the first time at this age,
it's going to be, you're going to be like, what the fuck are people thinking of when they think of it?
And also,
like, when you remove the nostalgia from it, like what's there is not that much. Though, and they're taking a lot of shots.
Right.
To your point, they're going for double digit.
But what's part of what made me laugh this time around too was remembering like quoting it with you, Oren, or like quoting it with other friends. Like when he said, "Hey Tubby," I laughed because I was like, "Oh, I remember that time we quoted that." Like it wasn't even necessarily like the line itself; it was the context with which I, used it in real life. And
to me, that shit's just tired. I know a million stupid guys who wear Sperry's and gave up on life and have some bullshit job. It's a fucking Bible, and I hate it. And I try not to let that inform my opinion of the film.
No, I get it, dude.
It's hard to get over something that's so well worn.
I'm very eager to see if there's a comedy that stands the test of time enough to earn the "it's still good," like definitively "it's still good" label, because I think particularly with comedy, it's damn near impossible. Like,
I agree, but I try to keep an open mind with stuff. And your Sandler appreciation and knowledge is good to know, because I think we're gonna need to have you back for a couple other things. For sure, Happy Gilmore. And I did want to revisit some of his comedy albums, because I remember What the Hell Happening to Me, or whatever, What the Hell Happened to Me. Like Piss Your Pants, funny levels. But I haven't, I haven't revisited either of those properties in a long time.
Anytime you guys want to talk Sandler, I'm available. And the truth is, like, we can get to it another time maybe, but like, I just think like, he is someone who we will, recognize that we sorely underappreciated. Someday we will realize that.
I don't think so, because actually I'm at the point where I refuse to be surprised that he can act at this point. Like he's proven it enough times where the reaction of like, oh my God, I can't believe Sandler can handle something like Uncut Gems. Like, no, we've really established he can. It's just that there's no indicator of when he's going to make a movie that's good. And that's why I hadn't seen Uncut Gems till like Carter and a couple other people like, dude, you got to get off your ass and fucking see this thing. It's amazing. To me, he puts out such an amount of stuff that you don't know when he's going to bring it.
He's amazing in that movie.
I'm well past the point of being surprised when he brings it.
You're a film school grad. Like I've had conversations with people, who just like can't get over, like, they're just kind of preoccupied with all the, the other stuff he puts out.
Well, Oren, to your point, I don't necessarily think that it's gonna be that we like underappreciated him. I think what people are gonna realize is that they were too fucking mean to him. Yeah. Like truly, I think people like too critical, too harsh. It's like, dude, calm the fuck down. Like, I'm with you on that one 100%. I think that people love to hate him for whatever reason, but I think he is an insane talent, and I think you can watch you can't watch you can't watch Billy Madison and tell me that he's like not talented at all. I just don't accept that. But I also would argue even harder for something like Punch Drunk Love or Uncut Gems. I would just say like you can't like I agree with you completely, Barrett. Like when Uncut Gems came out, I was so excited for it, not because I was like I'm really curious. I was just like I can't wait to see him crush this role. That's why I was excited. And I also love the Safdie brothers and Ronald Bronstein. Like I love what they do. And I'm like, this is going to be this movie is going to be right up my alley. I'm going to love it. And luckily my expectations were not only met, they were exceeded. And I think that he is someone who, also I've met him once, not that this should color my opinion or whatever. And he is so fucking nice. He could not have been nicer, and that was a huge deal to me because when you meet one of your childhood heroes, and it wasn't like I met him at some bullshit autograph signing. I was working on the Sony lot, and I saw him, and I went up to him and just said hi and told him like thanks for the movies, I love your work, and he was like, "Oh, thanks for saying that, buddy. How you doing? You having fun? Whatever." And then like the next day, I was running an errand on the lot, and he saw me and waved again. Like probably didn't even know who I was, but he's just that nice. Like he's just a nice guy, and that's what I love. And I love everything from like some of his early comedies to like even sketches that he does on Conan's show. Like he's always like Coney and like trolling Conan O'Brien, and it's funny. But I think to Billy Madison specifically, I'll say that what I appreciated the most this time was the fact that it was the absurdity stuck out to me more and the big swings. And I really appreciated that. So to me, I think it's still good, mostly for that reason. Did it all completely hold up? Of course not. I mean, am I even going to watch it again anytime soon? Probably not. And I would be lying if I said the nostalgia wasn't coloring my opinion of this a little bit, and it totally is. But again, the absurdity of it, the fact that I like about 5 minutes in when I just thought to myself, holy shit, they really went for it here. And a studio got behind it. To me, that was really impressive. So that's
overall to me it's still good overall. But
no, I think we got to take a hard look at stuff that we hold in this high of regard.
Yeah. No,
so let me ask
you make a good point.
But no, you do make a good point. So you said a second ago, like, I will never take my foot off the gas when it comes to an opinion. Do you mean like you won't accept things like people saying, well, the nostalgia factor for me?
No, what I mean is that I won't tamper an opinion with the art is subjective, so who knows? We could work for one person, could work for. I don't believe in any of that shit. I think make an argument, show your work, and stand by it.
That's fair. I think
better than anything. So I'll never soften something of like, maybe Adam Sandler's a great guy, and I meet him, and I'm like, yeah, he was really nice to me. Hey, this movie sucks. Like those are two separate items,
and they don't have to be mutually exclusive.
And I'm not. Yeah, and I won't. I don't feel the need to not have an opinion on art because of other factors.
Right.
You can look at stuff as it is and make an argument and judge it without having to feel bad or like you need to tamper that with something else. And I feel people like Adam Sandler's work. I think that's cool. Just if you can explain it beyond, which Oren, you definitely did to your extreme credit, beyond this is a comedy classic. Oh my God, it's great. If you can do that, then that's a fun discussion. If you can't, it's like, what the hell? What do you even? What is your experience of this shit?
Right.
Yeah. That's my deal. That's my rant. God damn it.
All right, we're gonna wrap it up because I think Oren has to run.
I'm sorry, guys. Yeah.
No, don't be
okay,
sorry.
We're extremely long.
Yeah, it was great having you, man.
I really could go on and on about things I love about Sandler and his films. So.
We'll definitely have you back for another Sandler episode. Thank you to Oren Peleg. You can find us on Instagram at StillGoodShow. You can send us an email, stillgoodshow@gmail.com, with any episode ideas, or if you agreed or disagreed with one of us. Find us on Facebook, Is It Still Good? And finally, our website, stillgoodshow.com. Next week, we will be diving into Coldplay's 20-year-old classic album, Parachutes, Bears, Ears Are Gonna Bleed, My Ears Are Going to Come. Thank you all so much, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
God, that's disgusting. Okay, guys. Take care.